Hello everyone, I am Rod and I am the game design instructor for the Academy of Entertainment Arts over at Dixie Hollands High School. If you are one of my students, it's Mr. Flowers to you, and welcome to this video tutorial. Good evening everybody. Today we're going to go over how to set up a basic rig for our character. The last time we set this up we did just a basic skeleton so that we could do some FK animation. But animating a character is much easier if you have a rig of some sort, either a forward connects rig or an inverse connects rig. The one we're going to set up today is going to be an IK rig, and it's just going to be a very basic, bare bones rig. But be that as it may, it's still going to be a bit complex. This is more of an advanced topic, so I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. Before we go into that, however, there are some adjustments I want to make to the skeleton to make rigging it a little bit easier. First things first, we want to unbind our skeleton from our skin. So if we grab our skeleton, select our skin, go up to skin. If you don't see the skin option up here, make sure we're in rigging, and go to bind. And then we're looking for the unbind option. If you already have skin weights on here, make sure that you have this set to keep history. I don't have any skin weights on mine, so I'm going to go ahead and not worry about that. But if you have skin weights, make sure you have keep history selected. I'm going to delete my history because I don't want to retain my skin weights. And I'll just hit detach. And now I have my skeleton, and we can go ahead and work on this hand here. I come down here to the hands, and last time we set up the hand with a wrist joint that extended to our fingers. But this is going to cause some problems when we try to set up our rig. If we grab this wrist and we look at it, you can see its rotation axis is a little bit skewed, and that's going to be an issue. So if I try to bend this, it's not as straight as it could be. It's kind of coming off the axis. And a lot of that has to do with it being branched off to multiple bones. It just can't find a center. So to fix that, I'm going to separate this and add an extra bone for the hand. Go ahead and select the bones here of the end of the fingers. So we're going to grab the thumb and then the knuckles, the thumb, and then press Shift and then P, and that will unparent them. Now we're going to add a new bone. I'm going to go up to rigging here. Grab my insert joint tool, go to the front. I'm going to put a bone about middle of the hand. About right there's fine. I'm going to go to my side view. Remember, whenever we snap these in, they're going to jump to the grid, so I'm going to move this over. And I'm going to position this about center of the meat of the hand, so between, say, the thumb and then the top of the hand there. Okay. Now I'm just going to name this joint. This is going to be L_hand for left hand. I'm going to grab this, hold Shift, select my wrist, and then hit P. That'll parent it. And then I will grab the fingers and I will parent those to the hand. So Shift select, and then P. And now we have a hand, and then the wrist will have a cleaner rotational axis once we reset it. Before we do that, let's go ahead and mirror this over. We're just going to grab the collarbone on the right side and go ahead and delete that. I'm going to select the collarbone for my left side here. Go to skeleton. If you don't see the skeleton option up here, make sure we're in the rigging tab up here. Go to skeleton. Go down to mirror joints. I'm going to have behavior selected. If you don't remember, behavior mimics how this will behave. So if I rotate this arm up on this side, this will also rotate upward. But if we do orientation, it'll be opposite. So rotating up on this side will rotate down on that side. It's a little bit weird, but behavior is the one you want. We're going to search for capital L_. because that's our prefix for our left side, and we're going to replace that with capital R underscore for our right side. Hit apply. There we go. And now we have both our hands fixed. So the last thing we want to do is we want to reorient our joints. The last time we oriented our joints, we didn't do a very good job of that. We want to make sure that these are going to be lined up for our IK rig. So go up to Select, go down to All by Type, grab Joints. And then, once you have all those selected, go up to Skeleton, go down to Orient Joint, grab the options, and we will toggle Locate Axis Visibility. And there we go, we have all these. So as you're modeling, you want to orient your joints. You want your joints to orient in the direction that your character is facing. So our character, at least my character, I modeled facing inside the Z-axis. So if you look at my grid here, the Z-axis is my front. So we want all of our bones to kind of point in that same way. So Z is my front, X is my left and right, and Y is my up and down. To kind of get that on here, we're going to have to play around with our controls here. But basically, the first one here, our primary axis, is the axis that runs down the length of the bone. Okay? So we want our Y-axis to run down the length of the bone. Okay? Or this one's running up, but whichever. The secondary axis, we want that to be our Z, and we want that to point forward. And then we also want our X-axis to point to the left. I went ahead and did this already, but you can see Y and then ZZ is what I have selected. I'll hit Apply, and that will go ahead and rotate all these. And you can see that Z is pointing front, X is pointing left and right, and our Y is running down the length of the bones. Okay? And that'll help our IK rig do its job a little bit better. The other way we had it set up didn't really matter because we weren't doing any kind of kinetics on here. But now that we're going to set the rig up, we really want to make sure that these are pointed the correct way. Okay? I'll go ahead and hit close. Oh, don't forget to uncheck local axis visibility. We don't need these on anymore. And now with all these oriented, we can go ahead and reattach our skin. So I'm going to grab my skeleton, grab my skin. I'm going to go up to Skin and just choose Bind. Options box here. I'm going to do geodesic voxel. And the difference between geodesic voxel versus closest in distance is geodesic voxel will basically take where the joint is, and it'll produce a sphere inside the joint or a radius, and anything within that radii of each one of these joints here will be considered a skin weight. It's a little bit nicer in the event that you don't have like fully closed geometry. So, and my skeleton, my mesh is actually pretty clean, but my eyes are kind of open, and there are some holes here and there. So, just knowing that going through, this is going to be a little bit nicer for me. I'm going to hit Apply or Bind, either one. Just test my binding. That looks like it's doing its job. I'm not going to go through and do a full skin weight here. I just want to show how the rigging process is going to work. Okay, with that set, we can get into some other areas as far as rigging. So to set up a rig, we have these control handles up here, and right next to the joint tool, we have this little one with a little purple line through it. This is an IK handle. We're going to do an IK handle now. We'll talk about FK a little bit later. But basically, the IK will take a point, and that'll be the control handle for a chain of bones. So, for example, if I grab this and I select this bone here, and then I go all the way down to my wrist joint, and I select there, it'll create an IK handle. And with that IK in there, I can go ahead and bend this, and I have this kind of movement. Now, right now, it doesn't look very good, and the reason for that is, well, we have to set up some things to make this control a little bit nicer. First, if you look, my arm is bending in areas that it shouldn't. And the reason for that is these joints here, these little roll joints, are only meant for rolling the arm. They're not meant to bend, but they're bending inside of here. And the reason for that has to do with the limitations of the joint. We need to tell these things that they cannot roll. So I'm going to go ahead and Control Z and get rid of that control. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up my joint properties. I'm going to select the joint that I want. I'm going to go up to attributes here. So after the hammer, so we have the little hammer there, and then we have this little box list. This is our attributes. Go ahead and click that, and it'll bring up in our joint properties here. I'm going to scroll down, and you can see the one that I have. I have my left upper arm twist. I'm going to scroll down, and I have joint rotation limit, and then limit information. I'm going to open up limit information. I'm going to scroll down, and we have the option for translate and rotate. Well, we're not worried about translating our joints, so we're going to go down to rotate, and we don't want our joint to be able to bend. So if I bring up my rotational axis by hitting E here, you can see that the joint is capable of bending in the X, and you can see it update over here. It can bend in the X, and it can bend in the Z. Well, we don't want either of those to happen. So I'm going to come over to my rotational limitations here. And rotation limit X, I'm going to check that with a minimum of 0. And my max, I'm going to check that with a minimum of 0. I'm going to do the same thing for Z. Okay, so rotation X and rotation Z has a minimum and a maximum of 0, and those are checked. So now if I were to grab this and try to rotate it, it's not going to rotate. But if I, or bend it, it won't bend. But if I want to rotate the Y and just kind of twist the arm, you can see I can twist. And that's perfectly fine. We have to do that for every twist joint. So I'm going to go down to the next one on my list here, and that's going to be my forearm twist. So down here, you can see left forearm twist. I'm going to be in my limit information, and I want my X to be set to 0 on the minimum, 0 on the maximum. The rotation on the Z is going to be 0 on the minimum, 0 on the maximum. Okay, it's the same deal. I can no longer bend this, but I can rotate and twist it. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do that on the next arm. So on my right arm, I grab the twist joint, and I will set these. So 0, 0, and I'm only setting the X and the Z's. So that's rotation X, minimum 0, maximum 0, rotation Z, rotation, yep. And the Y we're leaving open. And again, I can rotate it, or I can, yep, but I can't bend it, which is the whole goal here. And just make sure you're on the correct joint. So we're only doing the twist joints. Okay? Hopefully you went ahead and named them. If you didn't name them, you might be lost. Make sure that you name your stuff because it's important. We also have roll joints inside the leg. So we don't want the legs to bend sideways because, well, yeah, that's not healthy. So we're going to prevent that from happening. Same deal. In my left thigh twist, I have my rotational limit. I'm going to have my X minimum 0, X maximum 0, the rotation Z 0, and the maximum 0. I go down to my shin twist, set the rotation in the X minimum to 0, the maximum to 0, and then the Z to 0, and then the Z max to 0. We'll do the same thing on the right side. All right, got this one. Okay, so that's the right thigh twist. And I will do the left thigh, or sorry, the right shin twist. Okay. So now if we were to set up a IK joint or IK handle here. Go ahead and try that. You'll see that it shouldn't bend in any awkward places, so it bends more like an arm would. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and Control Z just to remove the handle. We're not going to do the arms just yet, we're going to do the feet. I'm going to grab my IK handle. I'm going to select the hip, and I'm going to go all the way down to the left ankle. And that's going to be our first handle. I'm going to name this L underscore ankle underscore IK. You can see the name up here. And then I'm going to set up another IK. I'm going to go from the left ankle to the left foot. Now the foot is the one in the middle of the foot here. Okay, so that's the ankle bone, and then the foot bone is in the middle here. And that's going to be L underscore foot IK. I'm going to bring up my tool again, and I'm going to make one from the middle of the foot to the tip of the toe. All right, so I'm going to have the toe is going to be named L underscore toe IK. All right, so those are our 3 IK handles. We don't want to mess with the IK handles directly. We're going to create some groups. The reason for that is whenever we move something, we want to be able to zero it back out. And these little handles are kind of hard to mess with. So by setting up some groups, we give it a little bit of padding to where we can tweak it without breaking our chain. And you'll kind of see how that works. Over here, you'll see we have this big view here. This is our perspective view. That's what we're currently in. This is the 4 view that breaks it into 4 panels. And then I'm going to go down to this 2 view where it's one on the top and one on the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and click that. So now I have my perspective in the top here, and I have this graph view at the bottom. But I don't want to see this graph. I want to see my hypergraph. So I'm going to go down to these little drop-down windows. There's 2 of them. The top one does the top window. The bottom one controls this bottom window. So on the bottom window, I'm going to hit the option here. I'm going to go to my hypergraph hierarchy. And that's going to bring up this little window here. You can't see anything just yet because we don't have anything selected. I'm going to zoom out. I'm going to grab my ankle, and then I'm going to hit the F key inside of this window, and that'll bring up these little boxes here. I'm going to zoom out, and you can see we have our IK handles. To move around inside this window, it works the same as any orthographic view. If I hold Alt and then middle mouse click, it lets me pan around. Be very careful with that, though, because you can accidentally unhook some of these connections by not holding the Alt key. Just be aware of that. Okay. To set up the group, I'm going to select my left ankle IK, and I'm going to hold Control and press the G key, and that'll create a group. You'll see it jumps over to here. So now we have a group, and it's a parent-child relationship. The group is the parent, and then the control is the child. I'm going to name this group L underscore foot underscore lift underscore GRP for group. You can do GRP capitalized or lowercase. It doesn't really matter. Whatever floats your boat. So we know that this is the left foot lift group. And this is going to get its own position on the screen here that will be relative to this IK handle. So whenever we go to move the handle, we're actually going to move the group instead. Okay? A little bit confusing, but there's a reason to why we do it this way. And it just makes it easier so we don't break our rig. These two, our left foot IK and our left toe IK, those are going to be grouped together. So I'm going to grab them both. And you can just drag a selection box by left clicking and dragging. So select both of those and then Control G. And that's going to jump over to here, and you can see they're both in a group. And then in our little panel here, I'm going to go and say L underscore, and this is going to be the toe lift group. So toe underscore lift underscore GRP. Now if you want to take notes as you're doing this, I recommend it. It's taken me quite a while to remember this particular setup, and I've been doing it for years, so notes are always a good thing. With these 2 groups available, we're going to make 2 more groups. I'm going to select our foot lift group and our toe lift group, and I'm going to press Control G. I'm going to group those together. You're going to have this chain of groups here. And this one's going to be called left underscore toe underscore roll underscore group. And then I'm going to select our toe roll group, and I'm going to group that one more time. And this is going to be our left ankle turn group. And each one of these groups will do something a little bit different. Okay? So the pivot point of a group will allow different things to happen. We did this a little bit while back in a different lesson, but I will kind of show you how this works. So this is pretty good here. I'm going to go ahead and jump back into my perspective, and I'll show you what we're doing. So I'm going to create a couple objects. You can do this for fun if you like, but here's an object. I'm going to make it kind of big and happy. So here's the object, and we know that we can move an object with its pivot point. This little arrow thing is the pivot point. It's in the center of the object. And we can move the pivot point by hitting Insert, and I can move the pivot point over here, right? But if I do that, then I've messed up my object, right? Well, I can go ahead and do that with a group. So if I select this and I do Control G, and now create a group, let's say I'm going to call this box group. So this little box group, if I grab this handle here, I can move that box relative to that group. I can move the box by itself, or I can move the group. If I rotate the group, I rotate the box. So this is what we're doing to our joints. Instead of modifying the actual joint itself, we're modifying the group. And this is going to help us when we animate. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and delete that because we no longer need that. Let's jump back into our hypergraph. Bring up our 2 view. And then once in our 2 view, we can come down to our second dropdown and then jump up to the hypergraph hierarchy. And it should bring up our group here. If it doesn't, just select the angle and then hit F to frame up, and that should bring you back into this area. So now we have this set up. We have our turn group, our roll group, our lift group, and our toe group. We're going to move the pivot points of our groups so that they fit our skeleton. The left ankle turn group is going to snap to the ankle. To bring up the group pivot handle, make sure you just hit the W key. I'm going to bring it up. You can see it's centered there on the grid. We don't want it there. We want it on this ankle. To move it, you can press the Insert key, and that'll bring up the moving widget. Hold down the V key, grab the little circle here, and then drag it to the ankle. Make sure it snaps to the ankle. Be careful it doesn't snap to the grid because you just can't really see. So just go ahead and pan around it, make sure it's on the bone, and that's good. The next one, our toe roll group, this is going to go to the toe. So I'm going to hold down the V key. I'm going to grab the middle of this. I'm going to drag it to the toe. Just make sure it snaps to the joint. You can zoom in on it, make sure it's on the joint and not on the grid. Okay, that looks like it's on the joint. Now we want to move the left foot lift group. We're going to move the left foot lift group to the foot joint. So I'm going to go ahead and hold down the V key and drag this to the foot. Remember, make sure it's on the joint and not on the grid. So if I zoom in here, you can see that I missed the joint. I'm actually on the grid there. So I'm going to move that to the joint. Okay. The next one, our left toe lift group, that one we're going to move also to the foot bone. So I'm going to move that to here. Make sure it's on the joint and not on the grid. Okay. You might be thinking, well, why do we do that? Well, the toe lift is part of the ball of the foot. So the ball of the foot is here. So in order to lift your toes, you have to lift the ball of the foot, right? That's where the hinge is. So that's where that goes. If you want to lift the foot, well, you're also lifting from the ball of the foot because the ankle is going to rise. The toe is going to stay on the ground, but the ankle is going to go up, and the foot's going to kind of bend here as the ankle goes up. So that's going to be the foot lift group. The toe roll group is going to be what's going to happen when the toes turn left or right or roll side to side. Well, you can't do that naturally. You have to move your ankle. So by rolling that, we're actually going to roll our ankle. You can kind of see that there. And then the ankle turn group, this is going to control our ankle pivoting forward and backward and then left and right. So go ahead and hit the insert key to get out of that. And I'll kind of show you how that works. If I were to turn this, you can see it doing its job. That Control Z there. Okay. Before we set up the control handles, we're going to go ahead and save it, and I will show you how to do that part in the next video. Okay. Make sure you save your work here, and go ahead and do everything we did for the left foot. Go ahead and do that on the right. You might have to go through the video again just to see how it's done, but get it set up on the right side, okay? And I will see you in the next video.